Nguyen from Vietnam.
And so you spent some time in the United States, and you know a lot of people there, right?
Yeah, I did know quite a lot of people, maybe few 100%.
So, when did you move to Australia?
I moved to Australia, I think probably about 9 years ago, 9 or 8 years ago.
How has things worked out for you pretty well here?
I think because most time I live in Sydney. I travel around Australia, Melbourne and another area, Queensland. But I think Australia difficult, not easy when I first arrived.
Yeah.
It take me at least about 4 or 5 years before I can feel a little bit better.
Yeah. Everything working out with your family and your relatives and everybody?
I come here, you know, the good thing is I join with my parents, because my parents who are living in Australia before I came here.
Yeah.
So I think they feel happier when I came. Yeah.
Can you tell us something about when you were opened and something about your life back in Vietnam?
When I opened, I knew about Subud about 15 years ago. Yeah, about when I am 15 years old. I read the newspaper and I decided to be open at 15.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing doesn't come up by that way. Until I am 18, I be open. When I open and I remember when I open, I just receive a little bit. It take me about 6 months before I can really feel the latihan.
And do you have any particular experiences in Subud that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I think, you know, in Subud experience, you know, something, you know, really you can share with another person, and something you can share.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, my experience about Subud, you know, it one thing I think it changed me completely, because I come from a Buddhist family.
Mm-hmm.
So really, you know, the Buddhist person really not believe in Catholic or in a Muslim, something like that. But after I did latihan about 1 year or 2 years, I didn't remember I became Catholic. And I read the Bible and I went to the church and I did the fasting. They call the Lent month. And after I interest in Catholic, I become Catholic person. Then after about 4 or 5 years, then I really enjoy to become Muslim. But actually I not official a Muslim person, but I keep on the Muslim activity. Take example Ramadan and praying, and I really now I feel I am very universal person, because not only the Buddhist and also the Catholic and also the Muslim inside me. So I think that's my big experience about Subud. So really, you know, I can say Subud very universal. Yeah.
Did you have a difficult time getting out of Vietnam?
I think, you know, very difficult time, and a lot of person like to get out, but actually they don't have opportunity. I did, when I went out from Vietnam, because I think I did a lot of rehating before I get out. About 2 or 3 years before the war happened,
Yeah.
I usually fasting. I don't know why, but inside my feeling, I always fasting. And I not only fasting Monday and Thursday, but also another day. Then when I fasting, then after that, then I did a lot of work for Subud in that time, about 2 or 3 years before I left Vietnam. I not live in Saigon. Saigon is they call the capital city of Vietnam, but I live about in another city they call Cần Thơ, and it around about 200 kilometers far from Saigon. And I was a lecturer in economics at that time, and most of the time I was a lecturer. I got a lot of free time, so I always travel quite often to another group around Cần Thơ. It takes around 2 or 3 hours, or maybe whole day to arrive to another group. And I did latihan with them, and I try to make the group active. And every month I visit at least about 4 or 5 groups. And I think I did quite seriously and sincere, because I would like have at least about 4 or 5 groups real active. And I think because I need to do, because I know I must pay back something latihan bring me, and all my family become Subud member, and after that, then around about 5 or 6 years I did that job. Then same time I did the pre-13. Then the way opened for me to go to America. Yeah. So I remember, at that time, about Subud, I got something that think quite experience about how to spread Subud, because at that time because in Vietnam everyone must go to military training period. So I with another person at the university went to the training period, and I become in the training camp, and it's very hard because I am not very strong like another person, and I am very weak. And every day you must went to the training period, very hard period, because you must running, and you must working at least about 150 kilometers a day, and you don't have enough time to eat and to sleep. But when I went to training camp, I only pray, because I know I go to difficult period, but I said to myself, because I also fast Monday and Thursday to make Subud to spread, because I knew inside me the difficult period, and also you also fast Monday and Thursday. So after the end of the training period, about 2 months, so I said to myself, how, because I already went a 2-month period, and now it's the time to be finished, but I didn't see any person I can bring them to Subud. So suddenly I sit at the foot of the tree, and I look to another tree, and some person sit there. I said to myself, now very good opportunity for you, come and talk to him about Subud. And when I talk to him about Subud, and he feel he like to become Subud member straight away. Yeah, and after he coming back, I give him my address, and he also gave me my address, and I asked him come and to see me. Then I bring him to become Subud member. Yeah, and when I come back after the finished military period, I come back home, and even I didn't ask him. Even I didn't come to see him, but he come to me and to ask to me to introduce him to Subud. But after I introduce him to Subud, and he opened and he bring another, I think about another 10 Subud member come in, and another 10 Subud member bring the family come in. And he, you know, I think in America they know him. He named me Juan Tuan.
On time, yeah.
Yeah. Now he very active in Subud.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
national or
That's right. Yeah, he very active. So I think that's I think that's an experience how to spread Subud for myself.
Yeah.
Because you spread Subud if you really, you know, pray inside you and do brihatin and you sincere and did Subud work. Then the way will open for Subud. Yeah. That I think. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So you know that's the kind of about the special Subud. But when I come to Australia, most of the time I think half time in Australia I involved with Sunrise Project. Yeah. And here, you know, I can know the way spread Subud in different way. You know, if you really support the internal center and the way Bapak set up in Sydney, then the person will come to Subud member. And I experience when I in Sunrise Project. Quite a lot of person come and work in the big project, even they don't Subud member. Then they inside them open. Then I experience at least about 10% open by Sunrise project. Yeah, they come and they experience about Subud. Even we don't talk, and they work with Subud member. Then they suddenly they feel like latihan. Then they ask to be open. Yeah. So I think, you know, now, you know, the time changing. We only for myself. I am a helper, but now, you know, I very material. I don't think I don't think, you know, the way spread Subud if we really do help a job. But another thing is we must look at the business side of the Subud. Yeah, that's kind of way they can bring a lot of Subud members come in. Yeah. And also I can understand when the international center set up, then it relieve a lot of pressure for the country too. Yeah. So unlucky for us, you know, until now we don't have an internal center. Even Bapak asked me about at least about 10 years ago to set up the center, but now we didn't have. But but after 10 years, I worked in Sunrise project. I saw a lot of improvement, and look at the two person work. I work close with them. Lukman Q, and he now the managing director of the project, and another person, the director of the project, is Haris Medan. Yeah. I think they set up a very good example for all the Subud members because they working very hard, and even they facing a lot of unsuccessful, and they still keep going, and because that's their attitude like that. Then now, you know, I think I saw the lie of the project. Even now we lost the project in Sydney, but another project like Singapore or America can be successful, and and now at the Congress where they make announcement they can pay back on the loan and on the investment to the Subud member. I think that's a big step. And now the way really quite a lot of open way for the project now.
Well, thank you, Ming Su. Thanks for talking.
Yeah, I don't know, but I can really good interview for you. But with the American in California, especially in California, they knew me, and I just like to say hello to all of them.
Okay.
And I would like to have opportunity to coming back to America.
I'm sure they would like to say hello to you
Yeah,
also.
that's right. Thanks so much.
Especially Rohana Weisinger.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So that's our first interview with another person there. You got a lot of interviews?
Oh, I've interviewed a few. We have a young man. And what is your name?
Simon Blonde.
Where are you from, Simon?
I'm from London, England.
Have you been enjoying the Congress?
Yes, it's been a great Congress. Really enjoyable, very relaxed.
Any special things happen to you here?
Well, I've been very laid back this Congress, and it's really all been personal things for me this time. Not much in the way of real business sort of workshops.
Yeah. Any the personal things you'd like to talk about, or
no?
too
Well, it's
personal?
mainly to do with the fact that I recently got engaged, so I'm sort of figuring out where to live, and getting my attitudes right, and that sort of thing. And, been to a marriage workshop. Nearly went to a bringing up children's workshop, and I thought that was sort of counting my chickens a bit, so I didn't go to that one. But the marriage workshop was very helpful.
Yeah. How long have you been in Subud?
Oh, about 24 years. Yeah, around about then.
And your brother Ridwan is in Subud also? Or?
That's right. It was he who told me about Subud. He was in a few years before me, and he told me all about it.
Do you have any messages for him? Anything you'd like to tell him?
No, just sorry, obviously he wasn't able to come, but I've had a few chats with Lusana, his wife, and see you soon, Ridwan.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add, or?
Nope, not at the moment.
Okay.
Hi, Dad. Hi, Dad.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Hi, Dad.
Hardman, come here. There's a young athletic-looking fellow sitting in the chair. Okay, tell me who you are.
Hardwin Cantrell from San Francisco.
How long have you been in Subud, Hardwin?
About a week.
You were just opened here at the Congress, huh? How's it been for you?
Okay, nothing's really changed.
Haven't really experienced too much yet. Huh? How about how's the Congress been for you getting
Been
together?
cool. I've met a lot of good friends and saw a bunch of old friends and had a good time all in all.
Yeah. Anything special you'd like to say, or any messages to anybody?
Hi, Mom. No, nothing really. Just nothing.
Just having a good time, being cool, huh?
That's it.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna go over to the tent, say hi to them.
See you later. I think I'm going to go over to the tents, take a look at what's going on here. This is the last day of the Congress. Everything is over. All the thank yous have been said. A lot of people have already left. Still a lot here though. Pretty soon the booths will be closing down.
You get lost when you change. No, no, we don't. We do, but we have to take.
Hello.
Hi, Rockman.
Been having a good time?
Yes, I've been having a wonderful time at the Congress. It's just been splendid.
Are you going to be sad to leave?
Yes, I've already cried any number of times. This is the hard part for me, separating from the brothers and sisters and going off, you know. It's been such a delight to be here.
Yeah, it's been a great time. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
See you later. See you back in the States,
Back
maybe.
in the States.
The National Congress, probably.
Or the NAC, March, April. Bye.
See ya. Now this sign says last coins. What does that mean?
This is port wine. Last coins, don't take them with you. Leave your last coins here.
Oh, I see. So the idea is to...
$2 port wine. $2 port wine. White wine. Port wine. $2. Okay, thank you very much.
So this is a little booth to use up Australian money. Is that right?
Yes.
Is it Australian?
No, it's Portuguese.
That's a very industrious idea.
A few very practical things like the money spread and all that.
There's some lovely young ladies here. Have you young ladies had a wonderful time here at the Congress?
Marvelous time here at the Congress.
Why don't you say who you are, where you're from?
My name is Sonia Shushan. I'm from Washington, D.C., currently living in South Korea.
Have you had a good time here?
I've had a marvelous time here. It's been a fantastic Congress, and I wish I could stay forever.
Pretty good. And who's this lovely young lady here?
Elaine Stokes from Sacramento, California. And it's been great. Got a lot of gifts. Met a lot of really wonderful people.
What was the highlight of your time here at Congress? I mean, besides dancing with me, next thing under that.
Well, that was the highlight. Really enjoyed the Subud Raising Children in Subud workshop. There were people there who were grandparents, people there that were children of Subud parents, and everything in between. And it was real valuable sharing of information. It's great.
How about you, Sonia? What was your high point?
Well, I think aside from all the wonderful gifts God bestowed upon me here, it was just meeting everybody and trying to be close to God and close to the guidance and sharing with different people and just realizing God takes care of us if we listen to Him. And also just to the cultural and the true international spirit of our brotherhood really became clear.
Well, I hope you'll say hello to all the people in Korea when you go back.
All the Subud people.
All the Subud people that I don't know about.
You need to go and open up some.
Open a few before I leave.
I mean, they've got all these big Olympic facilities. Might as well use them for something,
That's
right?
true. Latihan in the Olympic Park. What a thought. I never thought of that.
Okay, thanks for talking. I'll see you back home sometime.
Bye-bye.
No.
some typical Australians. Who are you?
Miriam. Not very Australian. Strictly from California.
Have you been having a good time here in Congress?
Great time, dancing with this crazy man every night, named Rockman.
Oops.
Someone you know? No one we know.
Who's this young lady here in the middle?
Wrong side of the camera. Sorry.
Wrong side of the camera or the wrong side?
She only photographs. I only work behind the camera. Oh, come on, Sylvia.
Okay. Okay. See you later. I'm going to here. They're having some sort of a concert. A lot of the booths are already packed up, or in the process of being packed up. People have left already.
Hello everybody, my name is Bobby Lang. Pleased to be there.
Okay, could you just say who you are and where you're from?
All right. I'm Herbert Taylor from Los Angeles.
Okay.
Herbert was the Subud name I first got in 1961. And since 73, I have also used the name Hassanuddin. Some people know me by that name. But I've always kept Herbert as my name at work. So in the world of mathematics, I'm known only as Herbert Taylor.
In the world of mathematics, so you're a mathematician? Is that your...
I do mathematical research, but I do it in the electrical engineering department at University of Southern California.
And how did you come into Subud?
Well, in March '58, I got a postcard from George Fields. He said Bennett was going to give a talk. So I went there from Berkeley to San Francisco and heard the talk, which by an odd coincidence was in the room next to the Go Club. I used to be a Go player. And Bennett spoke on, and I got a little bored with it, but at some point in the talk, why I went into kind of a funny daze, and well, it felt to me then as if two things like a snail's eyes or like white filmy tubes sprouted right up out of the top of my head and went wafting over the audience up to the stage and sniffed at Bennett's head. And at that moment, I thought, my God, that's very funny.
Nothing
so
like that had
then
happened
it stopped.
So nothing like that happened to you before that?
No.
Huh?
It stopped. But a little while later, Bennett was saying, well, so it's relatively quick and easy, and if you want this contact of the innermost man with the outermost, with the ordinary self, why, just leave your name and address and you'll be contacted. So Bennett carefully never mentioned God. So 5 days later I was in the old El Driscoll Hotel, and Bennett was translating while Bapak said, Bapak's witness to your wish to worship the one almighty God, and so on. And I thought, God? Surrender? What's that? Well, it's okay with me, I thought. You know, I wasn't an atheist, I just had no opinion about God up until that time. I thought, well, okay, if God is, if there is a God, I'm glad to surrender to God. So, that was it. I was very careful to keep my eyes closed because that's what he asked. Yeah. Even though I was quite curious about all those funny noises that other people were making. Something funny happened during there, but for the most part I never had much in the way of experiences. I just stood there like a lump for the first year or so, hardly moving any.
Yeah.
However, in my case, somehow I had a clear feeling that I had been given my last opportunity. And so I never had a period of doubt or something like that. I've been doing latihan twice a week for 31 years now.
Oh. How did you feel or react when you heard that Bapak had passed away?
Well, I heard it over the phone from Rafaela, my wife, she told me. And so I immediately went out and I was walking down the stairs and I felt as if I were filled with something. I don't know, kind of a... anyway, I felt very good. I thought it was just glorious news, you know?
So you're not
it's hard to
concerned
describe, but I certainly didn't feel sad.
Yeah. So how do you feel about the way Subud is developing right now? Or
I think it's going very well.
having a good time at the Congress?
Oh yeah, this has been very good. Somebody said that the special feeling at the 4th Congress in Chilandak was very special, and now this Congress has that same special feeling. This is the only other Congress that has that same special feeling. I agree with that. Seems that way to me too.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to add, or any interesting things happen to you? Or
well, just that I feel that God has given us an unbelievably valuable opportunity.
Okay, thanks for talking.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, well, I see by your watch that it's 3, so I will head over there.
Thanks. Seems to be a meeting of the outgoing and the incoming ISC committee. Goes up to probably the ISC chairman. People in your committee.
You tried on
Samantha Myerson working already.
But at the level that we operate in general, it's probably not
This is a very busy place.
yeah.
Hi, Rahman. I have a baby called Rahman.
You have a baby called Rahman?
Yes, and he's very, very special.
Well, that's good. That's a good name.
It's a beautiful name.
And what is your name?
Muftiya.
Muftiya what?
Telegan. I live in Sydney.
You live in Sydney?
Yeah.
Have you been enjoying the Congress?
I've really got so much from the Congress. Yes, it's not always enjoyment, yeah. But I really got a lot from it.
It's been a great time, huh?
Yeah. And what about you?
Oh, loved it.
Loved it, yeah.
Especially the dancing.
Yeah. Doing the dancing or watching it?
Doing it.
Doing it. That's great. And is this the first time you've been in Australia?
Yes.
So, you like it?
Well, I like what I've seen, but I've only been on the Congress grounds pretty much. I haven't gotten out into the country yet. I'm going to hopefully do that after the Congress.
It's funny talking to one eye. A closed one.
Okay, thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's kind of funny feeling.
We're going out of what's called the octagon room into this building. I think is called Sancto Sophia. It's one of the colleges where the different Subud members stayed.
Really? Backline.
Okay, now these people are going to interview me.
Where is on?
One question at a time.
It's on. All you have to do is aim it.
It's still on. I don't see you. Oh, there you are.
It's hard to see. Dry right on it.
Rockman, or Sir.
Sir, yeah.
Sir. I can't say Rockman when you tell us who you are, but Sir, will you tell us who you are?
I'm Rockman Cantrell from Seattle, Washington.
Have you been having a good time?
Yeah, I've been having a pretty good time.
Attending any interesting workshops or just dancing with all the women?
The most fun I've had has been dancing with all the women. I have just loved that. There's so many beautiful women here, and I've been dancing with as many as I can possibly dance with.
Yeah. Have you given up counting?
Well, no, I wasn't counting.
Just taking it all in. That's great.
How do you like the food here?
Food has been okay. Too much of it.
I used to be a werewolf, but I'm all right now.
Where are you staying? What dorm?
We're staying in Wesley, which is across.
So you're kind of halfway between here, St. John's, and Wentworth.
Wentworth.
Yeah.
It's one.
Have you had anything profound go on with you personally at this Congress? Or observed anything?
I've had a lot of profound things happen, but they've all been very subtle and not anything like a bright light or anything like that coming into my head.
But a general sense?
Becoming more alive and just a feeling that Subud is alive.
Yeah. A lot of hope, huh? Yeah.
Especially the dancing.
The
the true life of Subud.
When I go back, I want to have a dance every week.
Okay. You attended several of the dance workshops, huh?
Did you dance at the Viennese ball?
Yeah.
So which did you prefer, the rock and roll or the Viennese ball? Or did you enjoy each in their own way?
I think I prefer the...
Or actually there was Latin dancing too, right?
And there was the bush dance. The bush dance.
Did you go to the bush dance, Latif?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to the bush dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked up a sweat on that one.
Lost a few pounds of excess water.
I put it back with breakfast, lunch, and dinner in one. I'd have ate so much of my life.
All right. Any final comments?
Hello, Mom. Good. Anybody else want to take a crack or interview each other or whatever?
I don't wish to be interviewed.
We already got interviewed.
You just did it. It's just constantly on, Latif, and he'll edit out anything that he chooses. But he doesn't edit out.
It doesn't look great.
Sometimes.
It's dark.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be dark.
Yeah, no, I think there's something wrong with it.
Battery's low.
I don't know.
It's a dark day.
It's black and white. Dark.
Yeah, that'll turn out color later on.
So, you mean it's actually running now?
It's actually on.
Catching all your comments.
Ah, yes. So, let's see. You didn't want to be interviewed, right? So I won't ask you any questions. How'd you like the Congress?
Such a nice guy, Latif, you know.
I've had a great time.
Did you?
It's been
Yeah.
wonderful.
Well, for you, this is special because you really been isolated,
for
yeah.
a couple of years.
And all of a sudden, 1,300 Subud members. Boy, you've been here a full 2 weeks?
Yes, yes.
How far? Was it a long flight for you?
It was about equivalent from the west coast of the United States. It was about 12 or 13 hours flying time.
What's it like? Was it cold in Korea now?
Yeah, I scraped frost off the windows the day I left Korea. So it's a windy cold, not much snow, but it's...
Excuse me, Sonia. We have some aspiring actors and actresses here.
Say hello.
Come here, say hello.
Say hello. Okay, well, come here now.
And then say who
Sit
you
down.
are. We have to know who you are.
Yeah, come on, don't giggle.
Come on.
There they go. They're off to the races. So, back to the Korea. Let's see, how's it been for you?
It's been difficult, but it's been good. It's been good, and I'm ready to leave now.
Are you? Was it harder at the beginning, or is it harder at the end?
It's harder now because most all of the friends that I managed to make there have left.
Yeah.
And now that I'm here,
You wanna?
it's time to leave, and but I've separated my feelings about Korea. I'm just gonna go back and pack up and leave. And there the young ladies are.
There you go. Her first. Tell us your name and where you're from.
Okay, come here.
Come here.
Hey.
Come here.
Come here.
They're not really quite ready to be Hollywood stars yet.
What did you meet?
You met all those friends up on the hill?
All those friends.
What was your name again? Elisa. And what was your name again? Lillian.
Lillian Thomas from Wollongong, huh? Yeah.
Hey, ride on your bike.
What was the most fun thing you did here?
I don't know. Having ice cream.
Having ice cream.
New Zealand ice cream? What was your favorite flavor?
Pakey pakey. Pakey pakey.
You have lots of it?
We had one every day.
Every single day?
Except for today.
You still have a lot more time left today. You can still do it.
Mommy and Daddy don't have any money.
No.
That happened to all of us, didn't it?
Yeah.
Ran out of money.
Running out of money.
So who's your mom and dad? What's their names?
Marie and Michael.
Marie and Michael Thomas from Wollongong. Yeah?
Australia.
In Australia.
And how about you? What's your parents' name?
They're sisters.
Oh, they're sisters, so they have the same parents.
That's usually the way it works.
How did you come? By bus? With a car?
Yeah, because we moved to Sydney.
You moved to Sydney now, huh? You like Sydney?
5 years ago.
5 years.
Do you like living in Sydney?
Where did you live before Sydney? Alisa, where did you live before Sydney? Wollongong. Oh, in Wollongong before Sydney. Do you have any message to say to the children in the United States that may watch this television video?
Wave and say
Hi. Wave and say hi. Hi, kids.
Yeah, say hi.
So what is that color on your face? Have you been painting your face with some strange thing? What is that?
Face make. Painted ourselves as a cat.
As a cat. All right. Were you in a play? Were you in a play? Yeah? What was that about?
I don't know.
Just the makeup one?
Hey! Little girl, you must be quiet because she can't see the rice on her bike.
Who is that? Is your dad around anywhere?
That would be watching this.
Where are they? Can you see them?
Yeah, I can see Mommy.
See Mommy?
I can't see Daddy. No, that's not Mommy. That's Mom's friend. No, it isn't. It's Mommy. Mommy doesn't have long hair.
Right. We're looking for their mom and dad.
I can see Mom.
Tricky, isn't he?
And what's he doing? He was
Very tricky.
very. Rockmon can't be trusted.
Maybe the dishwasher.
Yeah, he's probably getting Latif's profile.
Not mine.
But he did play tea.
Oh, I'm on the mic.
We went already.
Who's this young lady here?
This is my daughter.
What's your name? Can't hear you.
The swing hole.
You've been having a good time at the Congress?
She's going back with an Australia tan.
Oh, that's good.
A lot of us tried to get one of those and we didn't succeed.
But Deanna's got it.
Deanna succeeded. Of course, she had to get sunburned to do it a couple times, huh? We're down to the last dollars, huh? It's a quarter of
look at it. Oh, yeah. Look at this. Oh, yeah. Especially the nose and the fingers. The fingers in the nose. Hey, it's going around. Yeah. Boo boo. Think, you know, on the camera. Hey, what you should say is. Ah, la 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 bum bum. Bum 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 bum. How do you make those bubbles? Oh, yeah!
Okay, this is Sharif Horthy. Maybe if you could just start with a little bit of your background, how you came into Subud. And
I came into Subud pretty early on. I was 17 at the time, still at school. I'd been interested in the Gurdjieff work for a few years. And, when I went to Coombe Springs to join the Gurdjieff groups, I found that Subud had come in the meantime, and I immediately knew that this was what I was looking for. And I've never missed a latihan since. That was in 58, beginning of 58.
How was it for you in like the first beginning parts of when you first opened?
Well, I very early on I received some very strong concrete proofs that Subud was something extraordinary. By which I don't mean that I had extraordinary experiences, but they were ones that made me absolutely sure that Subud was the right thing. They happened to correspond to things within me that I'd been trying to sort out, and so I knew that somebody who understood me better than I did was guiding my latihan. That's all I needed to know.
I guess most people would like to know how you became Bapa's interpreter, and how was that for you?
Well, it was the result of a series of events, mainly because from the first, when I joined Subud, I was deeply impressed with the latihan and with the whole phenomenon. And I had been looking for something fairly desperately up till then, so it was logical that I took Subud very seriously. Quite from the beginning I got involved in Subud organization, things. And when I was at Oxford, I was quite active. I was made a helper when I was about 20, 18, 19 or 20. And in those days that was still possible. And I also served on the first ever British National Committee as secretary. In '64, I kind of tagged along behind Bapak. I never really knew Bapak because I was open after he had left CUM, and I saw him at the first International Congress where I was doing the tape recording. But I was far too much in awe of him to go anywhere, get very close. But in '64, he traveled around Europe, and I was just in my last, I think, must have been, I forgot, I can't remember what I was doing, but anyway, I could take a month or two off somehow. And so I had 2 kids and a wife and 2 kids, and we just sort of camp followed, you know, like gypsies. We would go around wherever Bapak went. And it was a wonderful experience because we attended talks and testing everywhere and so on. And suddenly we bought a rather fairly large car to accommodate all the children and so on, all the gear. And suddenly, when we were in Switzerland, Bapak said, "Would you drive me?" And from then on, I drove Bapak and his party in each of the places we visited, in Vienna and Munich and Wolfsburg, and in fact I drove him all the way from Munich to Wolfsburg. So I started to get to know him and the members of his party, the Usmans, and yeah, I think he was traveling with the Usmans, I've forgotten who else was on that trip, but that was my first close contact with Bapak. When he came to England in '67, I had offered our house for Bapak and party to stay in, and they stayed quite a long time, several weeks. And when Bapak, a few days after he arrived, in '67, he said, he told me about the new political situation in Indonesia and that foreign investment was being encouraged by the new government. And he said, "Would you like to come?" I was absolutely bowled over by this because, of course, I did. I very much wanted to go. I felt I wanted to get as close as possible to the source because I really wanted to understand Subud. I know that's not considered a good thing, but so I said yes, and we went to Indonesia at the end of '67. Yeah. At that time Hatati was pregnant, and we had the baby first, and then when she was old enough to travel, in December '67. So he said there was a job that I could do with the architects group that had just been formed, and but for a year that didn't happen, so I was kind of at a loose end, and I had time to get to know the place and learn Indonesian and things like that. So I didn't, for the first year I was a bit at the loose end, and that was great. I was able to.
You didn't know any Indonesian before you went there?
I knew a little. I started learning Indonesian when I was opened to be able to understand Bapak's talks, but I hadn't. I thought I was quite good, but of course I realized when I got there that everybody laughed when I tried to speak, so I figured a bit more study was in order.
how was it for you, the actual process of doing the translations?
Well, Bapak was, as everything he did, it was the way he led me into this was perfect, because initially, well, in those days, Bapak used to still come down to the men's latihan twice a week. He would always, Thursday nights and Sunday mornings, he would come down, walk around in the men's latihan a bit, and then he would sit outside, and all the men as they came out of latihan would all gather around, and usually there was also a very dense group of people sitting around, and he would just chat. He would, sometimes it was about spiritual things, sometimes he would tell stories, sometimes he would just discuss what was in the papers and politics and football, whatever. And then when it was Ramadan, of course he'd do this every night. He would come down every night and sit in the outside the latihan hall, and we would all sit around. I think it was only men, or maybe there were men and women in Ramadan, I don't remember. No, I think it was only men. We used to sit around till the early hours, usually till Sahur. And of course nobody understood what he was saying, and what happened was usually there were little groups formed around people like Priyo. Priyo was very kind, always used to translate for people. You'd get snippets. And one day Bapak said, by then I was fairly fluent in Indonesian, but I only could understand the part of what Bapak was saying. Bapak is much harder. I mean, you can be fluent in Indonesian and not understand very much of what Bapak is saying, because he had he spoke an old Indonesian, which was heavily laced with Javanese, and one that's not at all common anymore. And also he has a much richer language and way of talking. So he suddenly said to me, Sharif, I'd like you to translate. He occasionally, I wasn't the only one, he'd asked another Indonesian member to try and translate a couple of times. But anyway, he just said that. And I, of course, he must have seen I was petrified, but he said, don't worry, just whatever you remember, whatever you understand, don't translate anything you don't understand. So I said, okay. So that made me feel okay, because it meant, a bit of translation was better than nothing. And I wasn't, I didn't have to deliver a perfect translation. So I did this. After 3 weeks of this, by the end of Ramadan, I was understanding nearly everything Baba was saying. Just the effort of trying to catch what he was saying had improved my comprehension that much. And I think I got better. And I was doing this was 69, so I was doing this for 2 years. I was the unofficial translator. Usman was the official translator, and I was the unofficial translator. So I would, when Papa had these informal gatherings, or when he was talking about helpers meetings, usually we had helpers latihan every now and then. Then Papa would talk sometimes. Then he would give a proper talk, but only to the men. And I used to translate those. And it was very, he somehow made it a non-stressful thing. So I felt I always felt I was able to do it a little better than what he expected, so I didn't feel any pressure. And that was the only way it could, if there had been any pressure, I would have just not been able to do it at all. And so little by little I got the experience and the practice in doing it. And then the very first time I translated a proper talk sitting on stage and so on was in Johannesburg, if I remember right. Because I unofficially sort of accompanied Bapa on a trip in 1970, part of the trip around the world. But I was only there because I had, I was free and I could do it. So Hatati and I and our eldest son, who was then about 9, I think, we went And just one talk on the whole trip he asked me to translate. Maybe Usman was tired or something, I don't know. But again, it went okay. I found I could cope. And then I wasn't asked to do a proper talk till the Congress, but in 71 Congress he asked me to do all the talks, and that was my first real experience of translating.
I guess people have a question about when you were doing the talks, were you like feeling the latihan, or was it something that was more or less you're actually memorizing what he was saying and then saying it all at one time?
It's very hard to describe, because unless you've done it, I think it's I don't know if I can really convey anything, but it's like I found, and this is something I had to learn, you know, it's not, nobody told me how to do it, but I found that if I tried to understand what Bapak was saying and tried to remember it, that my mind would go completely blank, and I couldn't translate anything at all. I couldn't remember a thing. There was a certain state in which one was listening, paying attention to everything Bapak was saying, but not touching it, you know. It's hard to explain, but like you just let it go in. It's not like you weren't paying attention. Because if you started daydreaming, then you lost the thread. So you weren't allowed to daydream, but you couldn't think about it or try to remember it. It's very strange. And if one was I found if I was in a clear state, I could go on like this for endlessly. I mean, he once talked for 2 hours, and because we just done, it was a helpers meeting, and because we just done a latihan, and I felt very quiet, I was able to translate the whole thing consecutively. And it was like you're following a thread, you know. It sounds impossible, but I mean, if someone tells you an interesting story, you know, you can retell it. You don't remember each sentence, but you remember the thread. It's something like that, but not quite like that. I think probably it was a gift that was given to me for the purpose, because I don't have a particularly good memory. But it somehow worked. But it wasn't easy. I was always terrified before the talks, because it seemed like I didn't know how it worked, so therefore I didn't know, I couldn't do it. It wasn't me doing it. So I was always scared, you know, that it wouldn't work, that I'd forget everything. It was terrifying at first. I mean, after 10 years or so, I started to get used to it, so I wasn't scared. But for many years, you know, I'd have cold sweat before the talks. It was tough. I think it's because the mind doesn't, it's not, the mind can't figure out how you do it, so it's kind of makes you more.
Yeah, that would be scary, all right. Do you have any stories or events or any things that happened to you while you were doing this work or around Bapa's house, or just anything that you might want to share? Maybe things that Bapa said, or things that had a particular meaning to you.
There's some interesting things, like I noticed, well, there are particular stories, but they kind of emerge in response to triggers, which I don't know if anyone come to mind now, but I noticed some things about Bapa that, for example, because I also, after that first trip, when I went with him as the official translator in 72, then I started also doing his correspondence. I would, as well as doing my ordinary work, 2 or 3 times a week I'd go and work with him in the morning, and I'd take all the correspondence and read him letters, and he'd give me answers. Now, in the midst of those, he would sometimes break off and give a little talk. You know how Bapak was. He'd suddenly, apropos of nothing, he would start to talk about some spiritual matter or something. And of course, sometimes these things related to what was in the letter, sometimes they related to things that were going on or something that I needed to be aware of. But I also noticed that when he was about due to give a talk, sometimes even where the talk hadn't been scheduled, I mean, I would only know later that he was going to give a talk, he would be going over things privately that would later be part of the talk. It's almost as if he was receiving in advance, So for example, if he was going to give a talk on Sunday and we were working on letters on Saturday, there'd be some huge chunk of his talk. He would just sit and talk, about something. And I got to know this, that after time, that a lot of this would come in the talk. And sometimes he explained things in more detail. He would explain something in very, very carefully, so that it was very, very clear. But the next day in the talk, it would only be a very short passing reference. But as a result, I knew immediately what he was trying to say. And that's why sometimes for people who are now retranslating his talks, it must be sometimes a little strange that I sometimes translated in more detail than what Bapak said, because it might be something that he had been talking about the day before. But it was. I realized that, Bapak was prepared for his talks. It's not that he thought about them beforehand, but it's like you and I. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this, Rahman, that before an important meeting or something, suddenly you think of something, or something arises inside you, which you suddenly realize, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to say in the meeting. I don't know if you've ever had that experience. I have, and I think that's Bapak was doing that on a more subtle plane.
That's interesting.
What else? Well, there are many things, but these are impressions, one of the things that a lot of Subud people I noticed early on, because in those days Papa used to be very accessible, very often we would sit around with Papa in small groups, and if Papa visited a place, they would give a talk, and there'd be latihan and so on, and then half the people would go to his flat afterwards, and sit around hoping that he'd give another talk. Sometimes a small group of people would get in and say, wow, And I noticed that there was a feeling, and I certainly had this in the beginning, there was a feeling that there was the talk, that he gave to everybody, but if you could get in privately by bribing the doorman, you'd get the real inner truth. And yeah, it's true. You got some fascinating. We experienced some fascinating stories and conversations with Bapak on these occasions. But it became quite clear to me as time went on that those weren't important. That the real the things that God wanted us to know were said in the talks. And the other things were kind of trimmings, and sometimes they were jokes, A lot of things would go around, oh, Bapak said this, or Bapak said that, and, about when the world was going to end, or what was the meaning of the dinosaurs, or how, how Indonesia was connected to South America a million years ago and all that kind of thing. This was all playing. This wasn't, none of this was important. Important things were in the public talks. And it was almost like that was special, you know, he was given a chunk of things that had to be said. And I've tried to always convey this to people, because I think there's still people who go around thinking, well, you know, the people who are close to Bapak somehow got the sort of the real story. And that's quite untrue. You could be real near to Bapak and never learn anything about Subud. The real information was in the talk and was there for everybody.
Yeah, I felt like that too sometimes.
Yeah.
Even though we're not close to Bapak physically, that we are close to Bapak.
That's right. Yeah. You can be a hell of a lot closer to Bapak on the other side of the world, really close to Bapak, than somebody who's seeing him every day. Because I had experience, I mean, for, let's say, 72 to, what, 84, 85, it's 13 years. I was really close to Bapak every day. I saw him every day, and I, even when he had his heart attack, I was doing things when I was taking his pulse every morning and sitting around for an hour while he took his medicine and so on. I can tell you that I went through dry periods just like any Subud member. You know, I went through months where I didn't feel anything, where I was bored, where I was about as far from Bapak as you could get. And this didn't bother him. I mean, you know, he was used to me. There were certain jobs I had to do. But just by being close to him physically didn't mean that I was close to him spiritually. Of course, there were times when I felt very close to him spiritually, but I knew all along that there were people who never came near Bapak, who were much closer than I was.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case now and will always be like that. It depends on our latihan, who we are.
How was it for you when you heard that Bapak had died? Or were you in Chalanak at the time? Or?
Yes, yes. Again, it's something Bapak did perfectly. For various, after, I don't know if you know, but about the end of December 83, I went to Anugraha to help with trying to finish the building. And Bapak gave me permission to go, but he wasn't very much in favor. In fact, he originally told me not to go. And some of the people involved in Anugraha wrote a very desperate letter saying that if I didn't go, the thing was going to die then and there. And the final thing was, he asked me, do you want to go? And I said yes. And the reason I said yes, not because I like two terrible jobs, but because I had the feeling that people abroad felt that this was Bapak's project and that they would blame Bapak if it failed. Whereas Bapak didn't have that feeling. Bapak felt that this had nothing to do with him, and if it failed, that was tough luck. But so I went, but I felt that I had done it almost against Bapak's wishes. And while I was away, I got the feeling very much that he was not happy that I was gone. And when I got back, I was supposed to be away 3 months, but finally it was 5 months. When I got back, I had the feeling like I'd lost Bapak's confidence. And I don't need to go into the details, but it became very clear that that was the case. I even offered to resign from Wijoyo, and he said, no, you know what you're talking about, something like that. And yet it became clear to me that that was what I ought to do. But it took a couple of years before I felt free to do so. In the meantime, he also stopped giving many talks. and most of all his correspondence was gradually taken over by Guru Hayu. First I went to see him once a week, and then once every 2 weeks, and then once a month. And it became clear that he didn't really want to answer any more letters. So I still retained an excuse to go there. I always used to, his doctor wanted him to have vitamin B injections. And when I was quite young, my mother had taught me how to give injections. So I was the guy who gave him injections. I always used to go once a week. And that was nice because it's still, I still saw him once a week. But I felt very clearly that he was putting a distance between himself and me. And doing it in a way that for some reason it was never painful. It was a painful time for me because of the Vijoyo problems and so on, which I felt I felt responsible for. But the fact that I wasn't seeing Bapak every day wasn't painful. I never felt rejected, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. It was a natural process. And as I said, whatever Bapak did, he did it perfectly. And this was perfect, because it was as though, for me, he died about 2 years before he actually died physically, in the sense that I felt he was no longer there for me, or for members' problems, or for this world, And it was a very gentle process, so that I was there an hour before he died. I was at his bedside, and in fact I'd been asked to go and find an ambulance for the next morning, so he could go to the hospital the next morning. That's why I wasn't there when he died, so I'd gone to the ambulance, the place, ordered the ambulance and gone home. And that's when I heard that he died. And because of this 2-year, 3-year process of gradual increasing distance, I didn't feel any sadness. I felt all I could do was to thank God. No, there was one other thing. About a month before he died, he was going to give some talks at the end of Ramadan, and I was obviously up there on the stage next to him, and he didn't give any talk. He just had latihans, and he gave his usual brief sort of prelude to the latihan. And while the ladies were doing latihan, we were just sitting there. And suddenly he turned to me and he touched my hand. And this was an echo of an experience I had on the very first time when I went on a trip with him. I'll tell you that experience first, and then I'll tell you this one. This was when I was I told you in '64, when he asked me to drive him around. One day we went to some dreadful snack bar in Munich, and in those days he'd go to the most weird, so Subud myth grew up that Bapak had to have all his own plates and his own this and his own that, and his food had to be cooked by Ibu or his man or something. But then he would suddenly go off and eat a hamburger in some awful place. Anyway, that's what was. We were coming out of one of these places, and it was starting to rain. I put up an umbrella and I held it over him. And as he put his hand on my arm, and as he touched me, it's like a flood of love came into my body through my arm. I can't describe it. It was like a golden liquid spreading throughout my body. I've never experienced anything like this. It's a feeling of tenderness, and I can't describe it. I mean, it was just the most blissful feeling I had ever had in my life. And of course, he was just being totally ordinary, and he was walking down to to the car. But I never forgot this feeling. And exactly the same thing happened. The next time it happened was the Ramadan, that month before he died. He put his hand on my hand. He said, "What are you doing these days?" And because I never said to him I resigned from Vijoyo, it just happened. Because I didn't dare. I knew he wouldn't let me. So he said, "What are you doing these days?" And I told him I was doing this and this. I told him it was I was doing something completely new, advising the Indonesian government on urban transport problems. And I said, "I've never done anything like this before, but somehow, And he said, "How's it going?" I said, "Well, it's strange because I see they all think I'm an expert, and we getting more and more work, and everybody seems to like what I'm doing." And he said, "Is it that things happen unexpectedly, and you seem to know what to do?" And I said, "Yeah, that's right." And he said, "That's right. That's how it has to be. That's the proof of the latihan." And his face lit up as he was saying this. And it's literally the first thing he said to me for about a year. And I was totally sort of bowled over. I couldn't sleep all night. And I only later realized he was saying goodbye. But it was wonderful. So when the night he died, I felt nothing. I just felt a tremendous gratitude to God. And it was about 4 o'clock, so I went and did my Subuh prayers. And it was then that I after the Subuh prayers, I tested, where is Bapak now? And I just saw this the whole earth. I saw it covered in a golden light and this sort of thing like a rocket trail going up into infinity. And I suddenly felt that Bapak was everywhere. And suddenly I felt close to him again, after 3 years of not feeling at all close to him. Yeah. And that hasn't left me. I feel we are now closer to him. So yeah, it was a strange experience.
I don't have anything else unless you have.
No, I don't think so. That takes us up to the present.
Thanks, Sharif.
Rolling here. If you could just say who you are and where you're from, and just give you a little bit of background, maybe when you were opened and some of the...
My name is Richard Engels. I am an artist, that's to say I'm a painter and a sculptor, and also have started to write now, and I'm living in Wolfsburg in Germany. And I was born in England, and my father was born in Hoboken, New Jersey. My grandfather was an American officer in the Civil War. And I was opened on the 23rd of July 1958 in Coombe Springs. And then, since that time, I have had all sorts of jobs in Subud. First in 1967 at the Tokyo Congress, I became deputy international chairman, the deputy of Varindra, to my surprise. And then I became, in 71, IC chairman, and in 83 I became chairman of the newly established movement ZICA, Subud International Cultural Association. And I've handed over my job now to Muhtar Martin from Portugal. And but in Subud you never walk out, you have to do all sorts of other things, and I continue to be a ZICA Lance Corporal now. And well, it was, so I was 13 years in big official jobs. I can't say that I've been very successful, but at least I enjoyed it, and also enjoyed all the difficult moments that has helped me to grow a bit. And I'm firmly established in Subud, as I can say, and I will probably work for Subud somehow at the end of my little life.
How did you come into Subud? What led you there?
Oh, this was quite a thing. I had a youth group long time ago. We went to Africa and to other places. So the first thing in this youth group, there was a boy whose mother gave me the commentaries to Gurdjieff and Uspensky by Maurice Nichols. We read them, but as we had some background, we went into the desert and stayed with the Little Brothers of Jesus, not being ourselves Roman Catholics, in the famous desert place which no tourist could ever attain, El Abyad Sidi Sheikh. And then one day, then we read, of course, in the papers articles about Elena Bartok and so on, but this I didn't like so very much. But then one day we went to the Luton. It's a motor car town in the UK, which is a friendship town of our own town where they produce the Volkswagens, also a motor car town. And then there I had read in a paper that the Gurdjieff Center was about 50 miles southwest of London, and after a letter took this letter 1 month to reach the mother of Roxana Sori Cookson, who invited us. And then from Luton, from the youth club in Luton, we rang up and they sent us a fellow who later on became the biggest crisis case in England, Frankie Perham. And he came over to us, explained about Subud. Before saying a sentence, he always was quiet for half a minute. We thought we were deeply impressed. We didn't know that this was his crisis, you know. And then we went to John Bennett, and John Bennett gave us a talk. And there was sitting a lady next to him who moved all the time from one side to the other, and she had long gray hair, and they were also impressed. Then we went into the spring house. I had always told the children, the young people, that about Count Dracula. They believed that was my invention, but then the night before we had seen a film, you know, Count Dracula. So they thought that this place, Coombe Springs, was a bit probably home of Count Dracula, you know. Anyhow, now these children who came there are now international trustee, Valentine Goebel. They are Hermine Rütz, who is in Bali, international secretary. All jobs which are possible are there. And for instance, our national helpers are these boys from those days. You know. So later on, yes, when we did the next day, we went to a place called the Arcane School in Tunbridge Wells. And we asked them, esoteric school, about Subud. They were frightened. So on the 23rd, we went to Coombe Springs, and then there it happened. Room 20 in Coombe Springs, and I entered that place. And I was really apprehensive. I thought there are no books or nothing then. I thought they were going to hypnotize me. And as I had a bit, as a student, a boxer career, only gave it up because of my long nose. So I said, if anybody comes near me, there was old John Bennett, you know. And I had such a tremendous experience, a vibration as if I had 1,000,000 volts in my body. I was in the whole Germany, only in the south there was a woman. Wood Gruzer was the first one, you know. And so this experience, and this we did it 4 times, and then we went into the Peak District to study the British rain. It rained all the time. And then, you know, then we said, that's it, give it a chance. And for the next 10 years at least. So this tremendous vibration is as if I had 10 fingers and 10 and all my feet in a plug, you know, so much. I thought I was going to die. So that otherwise I would have walked out because I had a happy life, more or less. So it has started now in July. It will be 31 years, which it doesn't matter how long, because you can be 6 months and you would receive a lot, you know, like I opened some time ago an Italian assembly line worker in the Volkswagen who didn't understand much. And he wanted me because his wife was already in Subud. She was our kitchen help and something. And then this man had such an opening, and he wanted me to open him. I'm normally inactive now with his international job. I took 3 helpers, and I had to put the spectacles on his nose and pull his ear until he came out of the latihan. Fantastic. Before I had read out Babak's words in Italian, they trained me to to read it in good Florentine accent. You see, probably didn't understand a word. So, yes, that's my Subud career, all the ups and downs. I don't feel that I have made much progress or anything. I can't say that I don't feel high or don't feel low. I feel normal, piazza, as Bapak says, to be normal, but to be alive every moment. And I thank God all the time, you see, that I'm still rather healthy, that my family is everything okay. I have a wonderful relationship to other people. And my work goes on within the limits of my talent, you know, and my capacity. And I think also that it's better to laugh and to be happy during your life, or instead of crying and complaining all the time, you arrive in the same coffin, you know. That's a thing. So I'm a bit as I have gone through all the hells of the Russian war, you know, 4 years Russian war and 1 year Russian captivity. So every breakfast is a revelation, every good bad and so on, you know. Yeah. And I also hope one day to bring a bit Subud into the Eastern world. We have now 60 members in Poland, very active, come over. An interesting experience is also that all these many Jewish friends which I've got, who normally should think this is a fellow from the war generation, everywhere, you know, it's fantastic. So this one world is something very important. And as Varina said, Varina and myself were the only survivors from the First World Congress, have been at all congresses. Even I'm probably a bit more, because he left to become the famous best journalist of Asia. And all the time, you know, and every congress was a special experience. Yeah. And as I had to prepare myself for Congress in '75, I admire these people, what they have done, because I know a bit about their outer and inner conditions at that time.
Yeah. Seen a lot of changes now.
Of course, yes. No, I think this Congress is a successful experience because we are mature enough not to quarrel with each other and settle our things. Certain problems, of course, take time. But the whole feeling was very wonderful, and I, of course, concentrated on this cultural aspect, because I said without fun and without the beautiful things of culture, kebudayaan, a Congress can easily become too emotional or too much business Congress, you know. And as I've seen in all these years, that many business decisions are respected, but they are not put into practice because every IC has its own conditions. Yeah. They have to deal with different people, with different. Tokyo is different. I've been there twice.
How did you feel, and what did you experience when you heard that Bapak had passed away?
Oh, I was very happy. It happened in the morning. Got the telephone calls from Chilandak. And then a few hours later I left for Los Angeles. And then I knew the burdens of Bapak and his physical burdens. And also, you know, Ramsey always said he has also childlike mentality. How when he was enthusiastic, I remember I had many meetings with him. For instance, when a Congress, 180 people who have already signed in or something like that. And now to see the difficulties of the big enterprises. Remember the talk which he gave about BSB, if BSB is not set up, so it might disappear and so on. So he went through a difficult time. But, and then he said, always, here you can meet Bapak and can have a cup of tea. In the other words, it's different, you know, this is an absolutely different setup, the Hindu Bazaar and the greater life, you know. I felt very happy when I heard that. And I was not sad, I must admit. And then I tested with Hamid Kemp about that, where is Bapak? And we both, 2 days later, felt inside, all around us, everywhere, here. Maybe he talked to Gorbachev, you know. And Bapak said in a talk that the people who are left behind should be regretted, not the people who die. He says death and life are actually one, only looking into different directions. So doesn't see any reason to cry about this going away. And now you see we are grown up. This was not a terrible Congress of fighting with each other or establishing hierarchies or Rohanis marching in, you see, and telling us what to do. It was very good feeling. So I was not sad. There is the eternal life. Bapak said you have to die 70,000 deaths. And I've experienced myself when I had a difficult moment. I shot through both lungs 3 splinters of a Russian tank, T-34, in the last days of Berlin in 1975. I was sitting here in the Pleura. Then I fell down in my blood, just in front of my old school where I happened to be, you know, and I had to defend this whole area. I had a whole battalion of men, you know, and seen the last time my father, and then I fell down, and I felt such a bliss and such happiness until they threw me on a truck and drove me to some underground hospital. So I said, that's death. Seen from outside, I was in a terrible condition, but inside I was happy and cheerful and wonderful, you know, and blood coming out of my mouth and everything, you know. So and Babak's there, he has different tasks now. And
do you have any stories or any things that are kind of special that happened to you around Bapak? Or?
Well, one story I must tell you to say how wonderfully normal he is. I was in 1972 in Chilandak, and we had to hand over the bank. I was definitely against it because this was based more or less on the Mas Usman stories about getting 48% interest from the bank. So it was too early, and later on, of course, we lost lots of money for that. We should have waited a little bit. And then one day we all went. It's all the people who had functions in Subud. We went up to the house of Bapak in the mountains, you know, Chita Lahap or what this is called. And then I was squeezed in the last car. There were maybe 5 cars. And then suddenly Azikin Alvi came and said, Bapak wants you. So, well, okay, normally I had the old German saying, never go near your king if you're not called up, you know. Avoid the mighty ones. So I had to go there, and there was Bapak sitting in a car. And then he said, Sila Khan, please. So it was empty, where normally Tutti and Mutti and the others were sitting. So I sat there, you know. And it was Ramadan. I was so tired. So I chatted with him in my pitch in Indonesia, and it was very good and felt very relaxed. And then I fell asleep, you know, and then I fell asleep. And then suddenly I woke up and there was Babak's profile, Bapak sleeping also. I don't know, both maybe snoring, you know, like that. Dear me, I said, dear me, here he is, head against head. So, you know, it was something, but it was normal, you know. Later on, the people treated me with high respect. They said, bullshit, you know, it's not like that. Well, probably he saw that I had a bit of problems, you see, with taking over the bank, you know, and that did not even have thoughts like if Marlene, my daughter, could see me or something like that. No, absolutely normal. Biasa, it is like that, which does not limit. Of course, I had one strange feeling. If I would have done like this, it would have been nothing, I felt. It was so light. But he was there, really, in flesh and blood, and normal, very normal. So I had to explain all the people what a privilege. No privilege. He is my father, my brother, how you may call it, but does not limit his tremendous inner stature, or that I didn't have any ideas if I see my dark soul or something like that, you know, or dirty dreams or whatever. Nothing. Normal. That is an experience which I had with him. And also then another experience, a funny experience is, when I got this assignment of IC chairman in 1971, I had the first delegation of Warin and Son came to Wolfsburg, and we went into a pub, and then they asked me if I could do something in this direction. I said, no, we are too provincial, and this is English speaking and so on, and he had forgotten about it. So I came to Chilandak. And then one day I was in my bed there, staying in Ramsey Winkler's house, and suddenly Ramsey rushed in and said, Bapak is coming. I dashed out of the bed, you know, and left it in disorderly state, put on some things so that I looked a little bit decent, and Bapak walked in. and wanted to see my bed, you know. So I was astonished, why does he want to see my bed, you know, really, it was not yet made. And then he was sitting there in a chair. Then I used the opportunity, the occasion, to ask him about the wayang, because the old Indonesians always pushed me, because I know a bit about wayang, you know, which lakon will be played. And it was a lakon Bima Bungkus. When Bima,
Lakon is what?
Bima is, you know the wayang?
Yep.
Bima is really the firstborn, but as he has stated in the Bungkus, in the shell, he's the third one, the symbol of the ear. And when he breaks it, and the white elephant breaks it, and then that means Subud goes into the world outside, you know. So he asked, and then he explained to me, these are the tusks of the white elephant. And this is material and spiritual. If you mix them up, give trouble, you see, you have to have them. So that was, then one day in '81, Bapak came to Wolfsburg. He announced that he was going to visit us to our place, a big farmstead. So I was joking that I must see that my bed is in order, you know, where my daughter said, don't flatter yourself and things like that. And really, and then I have a room, and then there is a bookshelf ahead. So you have to squeeze yourself between the wall and the bookshelf, and there is my bed, an old farmhouse, 300 years old or something like that. And really, Bapak wanted to see my bed again. So I was always thinking, why do you want to see my bed, you know, in my dreams? And so the whole party, including Sharif Horthy and the ladies, squeezed themselves into that little room. That was the moment when he came, you know. Then what happened? Then he came to my studio. I just had a painting on my wall, on the easel. And he looked at that, and he had to go up and help him that he was not sliding down. There was a platform a bit higher. And he looked at this painting. And then it happened. Then he said, Malikat, angels, yeah, angels are it. Now this painting is one of 4, you know. And when my children moved from Palos Verdes to Beverly Hills, with the furniture van turned over and burned, and there were 36 of my paintings in it, you see, everything burned. I have a newspaper article here which shows you from the UCLA news, you see, how there you can see Reinhardt saved them. They were between mattresses. Nothing was destroyed, but their whole furniture, the architect's office, everything was destroyed. And all not the paintings. And the last one, which he took out, which I can show you in the UCLA news, you know, was that painting what Bapak looked at it and said, angels. Isn't that strange?
Yeah. And did you ever figure out why he was so interested in your bed?
Never figured out, no, never. No, it is like, I have written down more or less all my meetings with Bapak, you know, when he tested, and so I never found out, and I was shy about that, you see. Didn't ask him what you're interested in the bed, you know. No, I don't know why, and well, but I don't know the best. And also I enjoyed him in every interesting moment. You remember, for instance, well, in 1984, you were there in Chilandak. You remember that he gave a talk and suddenly said in his talk that Richard is a Muslim. So everybody came to me, when you call yourself Rusli or Ramsi or whatever. I said, I wait for indications still. Well, I must say I'm well informed, and inside I feel like a Muslim, but didn't feel any indication, or I consider myself Christian, Muslim, Jew, anything. But when I pray or say it in Arabic, because I studied Islam long time also before, because I went so many times in the desert, 6 times in the desert. And then you remember that story when he suddenly received the book, you know. I turned around, maybe Richard can write it. But then immediately people were telling me how to write the book. And I got a letter from the hierarchy that take up responsibility for the book. I said, shit, I write my book, not your book, you know. And now I'm collecting stories, you know. The stories, especially the beginning was the Russian war, because they wanted me to have that, you know, because I was in a situation there which was very interesting from the Kejivan point. You had all sorts of experiences. So well, and now I will be 75 next month. Still feel fit as a fiddle, you know, and love love it, and this whole thing, and my life has been very interesting before Subud, but it was dead compared to what I experienced afterwards. Later and after Subud, I got all the trouble and difficulties, and that's part of the purification. Yes, now my whole family is in it, and one of the interests, I don't know if you have still something on the tape. Yes, it's interesting. I have lots of things to say. But for instance, one thing was important is I went one day in England together with Roland Starr, his wife, and people from Ireland into a castle called Haddon Hall, one of the old castles in England. And then suddenly Roland Starr turned up and his wife turned up. Don't you feel there's people around? Well, I'm not normally a ghost seer or sea spirit, but then I felt that too strange. Well, and then 1 week later, I stayed with the Horthys and I was going to see Edward Van Heen and had to stop at Matthew Sullivan's house. Got the telephone call, my mother was dying in Wolfsburg. And one of our friends had opened her because she had written a letter to me, she wants to be opened. So a woman who is the daughter of a friend of my mother, same coming from the milieu, old landowners, nobility and so on, so opened her. So I dashed back, got a ticket, and in Hanover, a Frenchman with a racing car collected me, and I went into up to my car didn't function, so I went to the town hospital, raced up, and there was my mother in a separate room already. They tied her arms, and I heard I was still not conscious, but still alive. This moment the latihan started, and I was full of joy and said, Mother, there I said, there are my brothers and my father all dead, you know, they like this. Later I remembered that. And then when I came out, the doctor, lady doctor, thought I was a lunatic. She's so cheerful, I closed her eyes, went off. And then all the men waited for me and did latihan with me in the same moment. And then I went, in the next 3 days nobody could come near me. They would immediately start latihan, something vibrations. And then about a fortnight later I looked through the old belongings of my mother. You know, old ladies have such a shoe card box or something with postcards. Then I found about, let's say, 5 or 8 postcards from Haddon Hall, one of the 1,000 castles in England. This was the castle my mother loved, you know, from 1911. Imagine that. And then I found a photo. And this photo was Matlock Bath. That is a place next to Swanwick where the British Congress were held, you know. And there they had their honeymoon there. It's very strange how that is. At the same, 1 week later on a Wednesday at between 7 and 7:30, when we saw these ghosts or whatever it was, felt this in Haddon Hall, my mother died. So it shows that death and life and death are actually one, you know, really. But we're blind because we see with the material forces in us. So that's very good. And and one day, you know, I went to see. It happened. I was at the Congress at Anugerham. I stepped down from the bus, and the light was too strong, so I fell over a chap who was pitch black and had a black suit, a Subud member from Angola. And I had studied a bit the mentality and the folklore of the Bantu. Our Subud member in Zaire and down to Cape Town are all Bantu people, you know. Yeah. It's I've forgotten what I wanted to say. Anyhow, it is like that, yes. Then I met one day a Bantu came to Wolfsburg and in the German-French society, and he had a strange instrument and so many strings, father, mother, grandfather, grandmother, and so on. There were inside a noise as if big peas or little wooden boards were rolling. So we asked him, what's that? These are the ancestors. They're all the time around us, you know. And this man came from Senghor, the famous poet and president of the Senegal in Africa. And then he had told him also one thing. Nous ne sommes pas des hommes de la mort. We are not people of death. Nous sommes des hommes de la danse. We are people of dance. When we hit the hard earth, we are becoming alive. Justification of the disco, remembering the latihan when jumping around. And the other thing is they're all around. So when I'm here, I talk to father and mother and my brothers, you know. It happened, my brother died at the mine right October near Stalino, where 2 years before I came out alive, only had frozen my feet. So my big toes are crippled, big toes, you see. But then he was a civilian, he had been in the army, but I was never in the West because I was British born, so they put me only into Russia. And my brother was no more soldier, but he had to dismantle the Siemens interests. And I was on Siemens Electro-Engineering, one of the biggest companies in our country, like General Electric. And I was also for some time, because I'm a master of economics and law, which I did that because in the Third Reich, so-called Third Reich, you couldn't paint. So I had my art training next parallel to my other thing. I learned Arabic and then painting and so on. But I was then, after this international Congress thing, I was in the Siemens 1 year training. And now it's interesting. We sold to Germany. They built up a big enterprise, Sina Laser, and sold that to Siemens for a tremendous amount of money. And they gave quite a big lump to Anugraha. So it all comes back again, you know, Siemens and so on. Yeah. So that's the interesting thing. So everything is interconnected. Now the world has become very, very small, you know, very small. And I feel at home in every country. So now I consider myself as half American, half German, and then a bit English, you know. Family is a French background, where the Huguenots, French Protestants, and I have the great love for Russia. I have always, everywhere, the bullets in my body, you know, so I hope to go over there one day. And I can do it much more if I'm a free man and not in doing red tape work and fighting to get a few pennies. In all these years I got from my part of Sika, altogether not even $3,000 in 5 years. So now I'm free. Now the South Americans invited me to come to see them. I said, I'm coming if I'm not your guru, not transmitting spiritual knowledge, if I'm not in competition with any other institution, when we share alegria, joy of life, then it's okay. They came the other night under the leadership of Ludwig Young, who is now the international helpers, because I feel one should include this vast continent. And I have all my friends in Iberia, and so very good, always dancing and jumping around, you know. It's very good, so that Subud doesn't become stodgy and boring and power plays and things like that. That's my thing. I hope I have not overburdened you with all this.
Tell me, how do you feel about Subud right now, the progress of Subud and the way it's going?
Well, it was going back many years. It was during my term of office we have really had 12,000 registered members, where only half I heard. And I felt that one of the main things what Bapak always said about enterprise to be in harmony. And he said that, and the people wrote it down for me and sent it to me in '72. But we will tell you a secret. You have the guidance of God, but the guidance of God will immediately leave you, and then you are at a loss when you quarrel and fight with each other. And he also said in Melbourne one day, if there is disharmony in the helpers group and the group, you block your latihan, but you are also sliding back. You're worse off than a person who has never been open. So I was a witness. I never intermingled with these things, of these quarrels and these misunderstandings, and also fighting between the trustees and Ramdan Simpson. Ramdan Simpson came to me and found that very sad. This is one of the reasons, because, for instance, our hotel in Wolfsburg, which people don't know much about it has 60 beds and so on. Bapak once wrote us a letter to Reinhard Hesse, who was chairman. Bapak was happy that we never asked a question. It's flourishing. In 2 years, every debts are paid, and it has become the best hotel. And we bought it for the 24th part of the sum which is invested in Anugraha. It's going for harmony. harmony and 100% surrendered and 100% common sense, you know. It makes 200% and you maybe make it, you know.
Yeah.
So I feel after this Congress, I see a future. And also, you know, these things like how to spread Subud. You spread it through your own work, through you yourself. And then you know the words hard to say, and then the people respect you. And see it in my town. Then you are guided. The other day there was a 50 years festival of Wolfsburg. It's a new town, they call it always an American town. And then by chance, in the main road, suddenly I met the general manager of the Volkswagen Werk, the emperor of this area. So come on, let's have champagne, you know. I knew him before. We had been sitting in the Finnish bars, so I knew him in his birthday suit, you know, so I didn't have much respect. So, and his wife is Italian Californian, you know, his wife. So it's half Californian in the family, you know. So we had a good time. They were filming around, you know, and then they asked my wife, who is he? They thought that was a big shot, you know, all the journalists. My husband, my man, she knows he's my man, nothing else, you know. So you meet these people, and then the woman said to some other people, she wants to see him.
$3 a week. Call for your free consultation.